Welcome everybody, my name is Michael Kubera, and today I went to the grocery store and there is an inherent problem with money. Legal tender. Here in Poland you have 200 PLN. That is what I gave for a grocery store trip worth 32.17 PLN. Why did I give this? I had nothing on my card and the ATMs only give out 200s in the nearby areas, especially when you're doing larger transactions. So if you're withdrawing 50, obviously it's going to give you a 50. If you're withdrawing 150 or even 200, maybe it might give you two 100s at that point. Anything above that, if it's able to, it's going to disperse those 200s. Makes more sense for the ATM because it has to carry less bills and then less refills. However, let's discuss the problem with money in today's world and how Bitcoin in the future will solve this problem. However, it does have its own set of problems as well. Let's get into it. Roll the intro. So I've had this problem for the past few months, really, because I've not been using my credit cards. I don't have credit cards anymore, and I've not been using my debit cards because of the fact that there's debt collections, and I'm worried that if I have anything on the bank account that is of value, so if it's like 10 or 15 for smaller transactions, because sometimes you have to pay an online bill, and all right, that's fine, maybe even 50 for an internet bill or a phone bill, but anything above that amount, I would not want to lose to a debt collector. I'm going through bankruptcy in America, and we're going to get to bankruptcy in Poland, but for the moment, I'm not able to use my cards. Now, there's no way they can garnish my wages since I don't work in Poland, nor have they ever seized funds from any of my bank accounts. However, there's really no need to use a card in this case unless you're buying something online, in which case I'm able to purchase a gift card from in-store. Sometimes I use cryptocurrency if it's available, which is really, really cool always. I always buy my pizza. If it's online, I always buy my pizza with Bitcoin. Ironically, that was one of the first large 10,000 Bitcoin transactions, if we remember Pizza Day. But the local food application lets me pay in crypto, and that's always nice. Just scan the QR code, it works. However, there should be no problem not using a card when I go to the grocery store or the gas station. Now, at the gas station, they're pretty friendly. A lot of people pay with, cash, and usually it's an amount that's actually over 200, maybe it's even 300, so it's easier for them to use these larger notes. But if you go to the store, and even if you purchase the cheapest object in that store for, let's say, 59 groszy, maybe 1 złotówka, and you give a 200 złotówka currency note, this is legal tender by the government that it has been designated. It is a value of 200. The value will not fluctuate. Can a store refuse to serve you? And I've had this many times where they always ask if I have anything less. And if I say I don't have anything less and I can't use my card, and I'm being fully honest, I only had the 200 with me, I always try and get these 200s exchanged at the grocery store. I try to use them, and then I use these smaller notes in other grocery stores so it's not as bothersome. Every single time I try and use a 200, always the cashier has a problem. Oh, but don't you have anything smaller? Well, I'm not sure I can do this. She actually wastes more time discussing with me, and she's frustrated with me that I don't have anything smaller, even though she should have no problem. If it's a mom and pop store, there is an issue with exchanges, especially late at night when they're closing it up. They might not have the money to exchange a large bill like that. But here's the fun part. I went to a local franchise, a giant grocery store in Poland. There's a bunch of cashiers. One of them definitely has change if one doesn't. And what makes it even funnier, the 200 isn't the largest legal tender in Poland. That's actually the 500 PLN. So technically, if I walk in with a 500 to the store and also get the cheapest item, if it's a large enough store and they do have change, that's the big issue. If they don't have change, they can't accept that money. And then that's weird because you have money, you want to purchase something, you're not able to because they just don't have the change for that. Where with a card, you don't really have that problem. Also, when you're using currency, I've had this happen before with the 200s. I give 200, it's late at night, the guy is very sleepy, and he gives me half of my change back. So, or actually less than half. And I ask, hey, am I missing 100? He's like, oh, yeah, sorry about that. Maybe he wanted to steal it. Maybe he was sleepy, whatever. Maybe his math was wrong. There is an inherent problem with fiat currency, and that is, besides inflation and all the logical problems to it, the fact that when you're using it, for certain situations, it's really, really uncomfortable because it takes longer to use than something that's digital. It also is dirtier. So with the pandemic and everybody's freaking out about hand sanitization, it is dirtier to use. It is more difficult to use because people have to have good math skills in order to give you the proper change back, especially if you're going to give a 200, let alone a 500. Nobody really uses 500s. However, I've gotten them once before at an exchange place because it was a large amount and it was easier for him to dispense that. But then I had to go to the bank and exchange those 500s because nobody at the stores wanted to give me change for 500s. Which also doesn't make sense because they could take a 500 and just give me 5 100s or 2 200s and 1 100. However, they don't have a place in the cash register to put that extra 500, which is weird. So why does the government produce it if it can't really be used in the first place? And everybody's always got a problem with me. I ordered pizza the other day and just had cash on me. And I also had 200, and there was an option to specifically have change for that 200. They didn't have change. They had a big problem. I've had situations before where I had to get dressed. I had to go down to the local ATM because people didn't want to accept these 200s. They did accept, but they're just like, oh, sorry, But at the grocery store where they can change it, it's like, hey, come on. And everybody's always staring at you like, oh, it's your fault that you got 200s. I'm sorry. That's what the ATMs dispense. That's what the banks give me sometimes. So it's not great. There are issues with, for example, credit cards where you're spending more money because you don't see it physically. What cash is good for is, for example, purchasing items off of Craigslist or here in Poland, off of, let's say, Automoto, if you're buying a car, eBay, stuff like that, in person. You're meeting with an individual. I would not want to be paid with a check or anything like that. Maybe in crypto, sure, but barely anybody uses it right now. So that's the problem with crypto, is that for most people, for most situations, especially for poorer countries or countries that are not well versed with cryptocurrency, you're not going to find many buyers and sellers who will accept cryptocurrency. So cash is king in those situations. However, in the future, I definitely see crypto becoming much more popular. And in the future, I'll probably be able to use a card that lets me use my cryptocurrency, and bam, I'm able to use it at a grocery store. There's already cards like that. There's DeFi lending cards. The problem is now the payment processor has to accept that. And around the world, there's different payment processors, there's different credit cards, there's different cryptos. So before, there are digitalized versions of currency that are popular and mainstream, and you're able to use it at every single store, kind of like in China, but they have it's not really a cryptocurrency, it's just a digitalized version of the Chinese yuan, and everybody uses the app. Even the small non-tech savvy stores use it. But hopefully we're able, in the capitalistic side of the world, to create something like that that's still not going to give as much power to the government, but will still be as effective and not such a problem as currency, as normal currency. Now, there's another glaring issue with money, and that is, how do you protect yourself against fraud? And with credit cards, sure, as a buyer, if you got scammed, let's say you purchased something off of eBay and you paid with PayPal and your credit card was connected to PayPal and the item arrives defective, or you just got scammed outright, the item didn't arrive at all and the seller is claiming that it did, and you're kind of SOL. Well, in that case, if you collect evidence, if you do what is called a chargeback through your credit card company, in that case, well, first of all, you'd have to go through PayPal, so maybe that wasn't the best example. But if we didn't go through PayPal, let's just say we did a normal credit card transaction, sometimes PayPal denies you. And it wouldn't be the best solution because then your account would go negative. But if you were ever denied, a second set of protections is given to you by the bank. And I've had that happen before. So the company that I tried getting a refund from just denied it outright. And the bank helped me with a chargeback. I mean, it's a rare option, but sometimes they're awesome. Now, there are people who abuse chargebacks. And as a seller, you can have chargeback fraud, where someone actually receives the item that you have sold and you are SOL because sometimes, even with all the evidence submitted, the banks still win. And in that case, Bitcoin is perfect for this scenario, because if someone pays you with Bitcoin, if you did your research, if everything's all good, the seller and the buyer are both happy, there's no way to charge that Bitcoin back, and you're fine. Also, with counterfeit money for an in-person transaction, there's ways to find out if a bill is counterfeit, but not everybody's going to check a 20. They're going to check hundreds, but you could easily pass that at grocery stores and other places. And for, unfortunately, business owners, they might even lose point something percent of all of their revenue for that year. If it's a large business, that could translate to thousands of dollars that was just lost. With Bitcoin, there's no way to fake Bitcoin. There's no counterfeit Bitcoin. There's no counterfeit transaction. There's confirmations from the mining network to confirm, yes, this is Bitcoin that has been sent. And once you receive those confirmations, that's that. There's no way to get that Bitcoin back. So there is the downside that if you got scammed as the buyer and you already sent your money, well, yeah, you can't really do too much about that. Or if you sent to the wrong address. So every single form of currency is used well, and it's used really well in certain circumstances, but under others, it may not be the best option. As a seller, I'd want to accept cryptocurrency, or if I was getting paid in cryptocurrency, because I know, despite the fact that it fluctuates, it's a lot more stable now. And once someone sends it, there's no way to get it back. There's no way that I'm going to get charged back. So if I'm selling anything of importance, I'm going to do crypto. If I'm purchasing, I'm rarely going to use crypto, sometimes just for the fun of it, but the infrastructure is just not there yet. If it's an in-person transaction, I'm going to use cash. However, for stores, credit cards and debit cards are the best options. But I definitely do think that with cryptocurrency getting more well-known around the world, and more payment processing companies and more card companies and more crypto companies, in 10 to 20 years, it might be widely accepted. So you might be able to use crypto in an in-person transaction. For example, purchasing a car, purchasing homes. That's already been done, but it's usually between one crypto enthusiast and a second crypto enthusiast. I'm excited though, because for years now, not all the taxi companies, but some taxi companies accept cryptocurrency. There's some burger joints over here that accept cryptocurrency, pizza places, mainly the food stuff, thanks to this one food application. It's small, but it's growing. That is that. Also, Bitcoin's past $11,000, so I'm pretty happy about that. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share.